Art night. We're going to have our museum gallery artist, Ardith Goodwin, give her artist talk. Ardith is an artist living and working in Mobile, Alabama. She began her career as an elementary school teacher. However, she had to retire due to severe physical challenges and disability. And as part of her treatment plan, she turned to creativity and has spent the last 20 years building her career as a fine art painter. Tonight we are really focusing on work that includes dynamic movement, and I just love to look at these pieces and they make me feel excited, and I kind of feel like you can't really stand still in front of them, and so I'm so excited to hear more from Ardith about her work and her process. So yeah, let's get
Thank you. And thank y'all for inviting me to come to Kentuck. It's my first time up here, and this is gorgeous. So the show that you see here, it's a dual show, and what I mean by that is it's a contemporary art show that showcases my fascination with energy, because I love energy in many different forms. But it's also connected to the children's book that I'm writing that comes out this fall. So every single painting that you see is a different form of energy that exists in the magical world called the Land of Ardithian. Dynamic movement is something that really I connect with, because when I was younger I was an athlete, and then my body broke down and I could no longer move dynamically, but I still longed for that. And I also find, the physics of movement fascinating. And then I also believe that energy flows through us and from within us and around us. And because of that, I stay pretty much captivated by energy. When I began studying it, I realized and learned that the human species only sees light energy. It's the only form of energy we can see with the human eye. But there's so many different forms of energy that exist that we cannot see. So I gave myself permission imaginatively to say, in the Land of Ardithian, what if we could see the energy that we, experience? What if we could see negative or dangerous energy or beautiful energy? Would we choose to engage with that and avoid that? So all of the structure and the form and the colors are very specific, with specific places in the Land of Ardithian. This one right here is the city of Alabama. And because I live in Mobile, it's Mobile spelled backwards. So there's a lot of geography in the state of Alabama that is tied into this story. Dolphin Landia energy, which is the painting right there on the very end, that is Dolphin Island. And that's actually where the story begins. And then different places and different objects in the world have different energy and different structures as well. This painting right here is Curiometry energy. And there are 7 books of wisdom that exist in the Land of Ardithian. And that one is the one that has to do with plants and forests and all living things. And it is called Curiometry. And the sphere that's floating in that represents the spheres that you place in the center of each book that helps activate the energy in the story. Now, when all 7 books are combined, it holds the power to destroy a world and actually rebuild a new world. That is Penwondertive energy. That is another form of the book energy. But I thought, while I have your attention, I'll read a short paragraph from the book so you can understand how these paintings relate to the actual book itself. So if you think about this painting right here, so I'm going to talk about this one right here, which is Dolphin Landia energy right there. As you look at that painting, you'll hear the description. Now, Dolphin Landia was a lovely coastal town that for most Ardithians held energy that flowed from water, land, and sky. Giant swirls of sweeping red and orange ribbons threaded through the air, twisting and turning in between smaller yellow and white ones. Cells and orbs floated, becoming transparent in one direction and solid in others, which made it hard to tell if they were coming or going. As the Ardithians moved through the town, the ribbon energy and cells floated around them, and others went straight through them. With every step through an energy cell, the folks became more laid back, easygoing, and ones who loved to celebrate. So if you've ever been to Dolphin Island, you typically know you go there for a time to veg out, because you're going to the beach and you want to have a nice beverage and just chill out. So that energy is all about that. And then at the end of book 1, there's a big celebration, because those folks love to celebrate, and there's a wedding that takes place of Princess Fairy Fartblossom and Sir Fletcher Lancelot. It is their wedding day, and the energy that surrounds that whole event will look like that, and it's all written in. So my challenge, imaginatively and creatively, was how do I paint contemporary art, and then how do I describe that in the narrative of a children's book story? And it all has to do with, if you had the physical ability to see energy in different forms, what would that energy look like? And would you engage with it or not? So it was such a fun time trying to figure out what the difference between one energy would look like to the other. The Scriblerian energy, the black and white painting up there, if Einstein and Peanuts and Charlie Brown had a baby, that is the energy that Scriblerians embrace, because they're hot messes. They're brainiacs, they're brilliant, but they're like everywhere, crazy, wow. This one right here, the City of Binary Buttons energy. This is the tech world, the integrated machines and systems, and the robotic canographers live in this realm. And it's very much an organic fusion, because the robotic canographers have faces that look human, but bodies that are robots. It kind of has a little AI twinge in it. This one down here, the red one, is the Athletarians. So there's a little town where the kids are athletes and they love to compete. So the idea of moving dynamically and being in competition, but also loving games and play, is going to be very important. And within the world or Land of Ardithian, there is this game that the kids play called the it's a mouthful. The Vimisphere game. Spheres, the actual orbs, are energy orbs in the story. And that painting over there with the purple, it's that square painting, that is called Vimisphere energy. And that game is designed for kids to have 7 to 9 different glass spheres, and they roll them. All the spheres are different colored, and they're they've got stripes and polka dots and patterns, but when they roll them onto this board, wherever the spheres land, there is a function based on where they land. And the kids have to start with the one in the middle, and they have to create a story around the spheres that they rolled and the story that takes place. So there's an imaginative concept, and then what begins to happen is some of the stories actually come true. So you'll see spherical energy in a lot of my work. Bubble Loria is the one that looks like floating bubbles, and that has to do with the part of the world where the little babies live, and King Baby the Third, and they hang out, and they have baby bodies, but they have adult brains. So although it is a children's book, there's some very weird components in how I've created these characters too. And then there's forest energy. So this one right here is Delcinay Woods. We have 42 acres in Sims, Alabama, and my husband has turned it into the most beautiful place. So a lot of this he has to do with, which I'm very glad about. But Delcinay Woods energy there is, it's a beautiful forest energy, but I didn't want to create a scary forest. I wanted to create a forest that was encapsulating and almost a respite, because the protagonist in the story, Mentorton, had always dreamed of going and having a tree house, but he lives in a lighthouse. So there's a fun twist as to how do you go from lighthouse to tree house. And in the books, there's 5 different books in the series. Book 3 is all about his time living in Delcinay Woods. The big painting up there on the wall is kind of the largest piece so far. And there's a moment in book 1 where the 2 main characters get sucked into the lightway and transported into another place, and they didn't intend on getting sucked through, but they did. So that little orange dot in that painting represents the chaos that they transported through, and they landed onto the other side. So there's a lot of, I guess, metaphor and deeper meaning in these, in a contemporary art sense, but they're all very much connected to the imaginary story in the children's book. This story will launch, the paperback will launch in August, and then in October in Mobile, I'll have the book launch, the full one, and there'll be about 60 different paintings from the Land of Ardithian, and there will be a big lighthouse, and it's quite the project. But this show right here is a precursor to that bigger project, and I'm so excited because I started as an elementary school teacher teaching the young, and I actually taught creative writing, and then my body broke down and I had to give up teaching. And I gave up creative writing and I gave up reading at the time. And my life got saved through the act of painting because I'm self-taught. I did not go to art school. Everything that you see here, I've taught myself how to do, and I'm very driven in that. But I went to the library and checked out books on watercolor just because I loved, color, and one thing led to another, and then I became committed to the act of moving through the world creatively, tapped in. And as I did that, my body began to heal. So I was really, really thrilled that the outcome of creativity and the power of that had a healing force in my life. So I stand here today completely off of disability. I was able to rehab my spine. I've had over 28 surgeries. And it's been a remarkable journey. But I had kicked the can down the road for so many years of, am I gonna write this book? Am I gonna write this book? But I started teaching, and I started traveling internationally and teaching and having artists come in the studio, and I had rent to pay. So I kept putting the book on the back burner. And then this past November, I finally made a decision. I'm like, I've either got to let the book go or I've got to do the book. So I changed my whole world and was true to it and wrote the first draft in about 3 months. Because as soon as I wrote the first 2 chapters, I'm like, oh, I can't stop writing. I'm going to have to write this book. So it's been really exciting seeing all of those gifts from my future, my past life to the future life. And I'm excited about it. It is definitely a tremendous project. It's very weird and odd, deliciously odd in an Ardithian way. But the energy plays a big role. So they all the paintings stand alone, but they also have very much in common in that they exist in the land of Ardithian, and they're tied to my fascination with complex systems, imperfect beauty, and dynamic movement that we do, as human beings. And the shifting inertia title is because I always just wondered, what does it take for one person to be in one spot and sense that they want to be in a different spot? What energy needs to move them to that next spot? Like, what will impact them? Is it a physical change? Is it a spiritual change? Is it, a mental change, or a combination? So the shifting of inertia is wrapped into these, because I stay fascinated at, if I'm still or if my body's broken, how can I continue moving forward despite the challenge that I'm faced? So thank y'all I would say thank y'all for pulling up a chair, because that's part of my branding, but I'll say thank y'all for standing and listening to a little bit of the story. I am happy to answer questions if you have any. You can pick my brain about any specific painting or any technique that you see. But I do appreciate you, listening. Okay.
If you could live in one of the Ardithian lands, which one would you live in?
Oh, that one's hard because my husband is tied to Dulcinea Woods and I want to stay with him. This was near and dear to my heart. But probably it's this one right here, neither here nor there. So there's, I traveled to Ireland, and the train from Dublin to Westport and Galway, every stop, the announcer, the name of the train sounded like neither here nor there. So it was a running joke on the whole trip. Well, we're neither here nor there. It's because it went back and forth. But the colors and the structure and the oddness in that painting is very much part of kind of my juxtaposition of what I love about life and the challenge of life. So that would be my probably second choice, since Dulcinea Woods would have to be my first choice. But then the Vemisphere energy, the one about the game and the spheres, that right there is quintessentially my personality on canvas. It is I wanted to capture the blissfulness of childhood and the tenderness of it, but also just the wonder of being a child without all of the hard things that life's going to throw at it when they get a little older. So that was a great question. Thank you.
I have a question about this one because it looks so different than all the others. So what's the energy?
So that one is Zydeco energy. So he was born in New Orleans, and just the influence of Mobile and New Orleans growing up on the coast, and also how we engage with fishing, and when you get together as a family or a group, oh, let's get crawfish, let's have a crawfish boil. So part of weaving the story is, what do we do, as a normal life? because it's the regular world, and then there's a parallel universe or world that's called the Land of Ardithian, and there's a place called the Fringelands. Shrimping boats are a big part of the first story, and shrimp boils and crab boils. So I wanted to honor that in this, just simply because I love food. Now, I'm not a big crawfish fan, but I know that my community is, and he is, so, yeah. Go ahead.
Which energy would you say was the hardest to represent or put visually?
Oh, that's a good question. The hardest. Definitely not Bubble of Gloria, because that one just came super, super easy. You know, I'd probably say the avian energy, this one here, because there's an area in the world called Falloon Fields, and it's basically balloon fields because it's where hot air balloons go, but I always switch names up. But I wanted to capture the energy of avian energy, which is bird energy. But I wanted to do it in a more simplistic, softer, tender way. And that's a challenge for me because I love complexity so much. Like, I go overboard in complex. So this is probably the most simplified painting that I did, which made it the hardest technically to figure out. But once I did figure it out with the beaks and this, oh yeah, I love that painting. It's like if I needed to just take a deep breath and have a respite, I'd probably exist in that canvas right there.
Can you tell us about your materials and your design and painting process?
Yeah, so I'm a mixed media and acrylic painter, so all the work you see has a combination of that. There's collage elements, there's fabric elements, and then there's paint. And the layering process of the transparency and the luminosity in the color is really important to me. But I love to do things, so predictably unpredictable is a mantra that I have in my life. Because that's what life has taught me it's going to be. Like COVID shows up, right? We weren't expecting that. You know, I was at the height of my career, and then my body breaks down. So there's moments throughout these where I typically put or interject something that doesn't belong or something out of place or odd. And a lot of times I do that through a different medium, such as fabric. You can see right here, these are actually these cutout patterns of velvet here. And there's different fabrics there. And then sometimes you'll see, especially in the Aplatarians, there's different magazine images. And sometimes I'll stick an eyeball where it should be, just because I can. Yeah.
Any other questions for Ardith? Okay, well, thank you so much.